Hello, this is Patrick at OneCNC West, and what we're going to do in this training video is finish applying toolpath to our part geometry. We'll also take a look at some of the main features of the NC Manager, as well as create a setup sheet and generate CNC code. All right, let's get started. Now, if we take a look within the NC Manager, you're going to notice that all of our machining operations are listed under a toolpath group. Now, by default, the toolpath group name is called toolpath group number 1. Now, a toolpath group can do many things. For example, it can create a CNC program, a setup sheet, and you can use any post processor that you'd like for that toolpath group. Now, in this example, I want you to think of the toolpath group as representing a setup on the machine tool. For example, all these machining operations were applied to the part when the part was fixtured using a vise. Now, to help clarify this, you could rename the toolpath group if you wanted to. Just double-click using the left mouse button. Within the description parameter, type in whatever name you'd like to use. In this example, I'll just type in the word vise and then click OK. So again, we have this toolpath group. All the machining operations are listed under that, and this toolpath group can generate a CNC program, setup sheet, and we can use whatever post processor that we'd like. Now, to complete the toolpath for this part, we need to take the part out of the vise and place it on a fixture plate, and then we'll perform the final profile operation. Well, to accomplish this, we're going to need a separate toolpath group. And the reason for this is simply that we want this extra toolpath group to be able to generate a separate CNC program, a separate setup sheet, and also use any post processor that we'd like. Now, creating a toolpath group is very simple. Just take your cursor within the NC Manager, right-hand mouse click, and select New Group. By default, it's going to be called Toolpath Group with a sequential number. And again, you can rename this just by double-clicking, heading over to the description parameter, and typing in whatever you'd like. For this example, I'm going to be typing in fixture plate, and then we'll click OK. Now let's create the first machining operation for our new toolpath group called fixture plate. We'll head over to the Command Manager, select Stock Toolpaths, and from there we're going to select Mill Profile Basic. All we want to do is take our cursor and click where we want the toolpath to begin. I'm going to left click. Once we do that, we have these arrows. Now, these arrows determine the side and direction of cut. I want a climb cut on the outside, so I'm going to left click here. Once I left click, my cursor changes to the word end, and OneCNC wants me to click the very end of the geometry where I want to stop the toolpath. I could click this little arc, but the shortcut is just hit the F3 key, function key 3 on your keyboard. That will select the rest of the geometry. When we're finished, we can right-hand mouse click. Now, just like with all of our previous machining operations, the very first dialog box is Select a Tool. We can create a tool manually or select a tool from the tool library. In this example, I'm just manually creating a tool. I put it in turret position number 1. I've specified the RPM. Let's change the feed rate to 500 millimeters per minute. I think all this looks good, and we have a diameter of 10 millimeters. We'll click Next on that. For our final Z depth, I'm using minus 14 millimeters. We'll click Next on that. We don't need to ramp cut. We're just going to perform the profile at 1 Z level, so we're going to use cut levels. We'll click Next on that. Don't need to worry about the auto step over. We could take multiple depths of cut by clicking here, but I don't want to do that. I want to just machine the entire profile at 1 depth of cut. Leave on side set to 0. We don't need to worry about the wall taper because the sides of the part are straight up and down. Let's click Next on that. We don't need an extra finish pass, so we have this set to none. We'll click Next. And for our entry and exit values, how we approach and exit the profile, I'm using line arc style. I'm using a lead-in radius of 5 millimeters, and the angle of that radius is only going to be 45 degrees. And I've done so exactly the same on the exit values. We'll click Finish and let OneCNC generate the toolpath. And if you look within the NC Manager, you'll see that under our brand new toolpath group called Fixture Plate, we have our very first machining operation, which is Profile Basic. Now let's simulate our new machining operation. We'll take our cursor, right-hand mouse click on the toolpath group, and select Simulate Rest. We're going to use the Pick a Boundary option because we want to pick that rectangle we created earlier that represents the stock. The top of the stock is going to be at 0.7 millimeters, and the bottom of the stock is going to be at minus 12 millimeters. We'll click OK, take our cursor, left-click the boundary that represents the stock, and then right-hand mouse click. Now, this looks pretty good, except I'd noticed that the tool plunged straight down within the material. So let's rewind that just to show you that. Now, we can easily fix this by exiting out of the toolpath simulation, and we're going to edit our Profile Basic machining operation. Just right-hand mouse click and select Edit Operation. All I'm going to do is I'm going to push through the dialog boxes to the very last one. This is where we can set up our lead in and lead out parameters. I'm going to edit the entry values. I'm going to change the angle to 90 degrees for our approach, and I'm going to add an extra 10 millimeters to this. We'll click Finish and let OneCNC generate the toolpath. All right, now let's simulate the changes that we made. We'll head back over to the NC Manager, right-hand mouse click, select Simulate Rest. I'm going to use the exact same parameters we used here. We'll click OK, left-click the boundary, and then right-hand mouse click. All right, that looks much better. The tool approached outside of the stock and then started the profile operation, just like that. All right, now what happens if we want to simulate all of the toolpath groups? We can do that. Let me demonstrate. Let's exit out of the toolpath simulation. Again, we're going to right-hand mouse click on the toolpath group, but this time, instead of selecting Simulate Rest, we're going to select Simulate All. Simulate All means simulate all the toolpath groups. I'm going to left-click, use the exact same parameters, click OK, left-click our boundary that represents the stock, and right-hand mouse click. There's our facing operation. This is all coming from the very first toolpath group, and this is when the part's being held or secured using a vise. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. There's our finish pass on the rectangular pocket, our circular pocket command. We're going to drill the holes. We're going to now engrave. And now the part's been placed on the fixture plate, and here's the profile operation. Very, very nice. Let's exit out of the toolpath simulation and talk a little bit about the NC Manager. Now, there's a lot of functionality that the NC Manager provides. Let's first take a look at renaming our machining operations. Machining operation number 5, that's called cycle, that is our drilling operation. If we want to rename this, all we have to do is double click, and within this dialog box, we can name this machining operation anything that we'd like. So instead of cycle, I'm going to backspace this, and I'm going to just type in drill, just like that. We'll click OK, and now you'll notice that we've renamed it. Let's do the same for our engraving. I'm going to double click, and then within the description parameter, I'm going to type engrave. Very, very easy, and then we'll click OK to that. Now, another thing you can do within the NC Manager is change the order of your machining operations. For example, let's say we want to take the drilling operation and move it to the very end. All I need to do is take my cursor, left click, and then hold down the left mouse button, and then I can drag that machining operation anywhere I'd like. I'm going to drag it to the very end and then let go of my left mouse button. Very good. Now, don't pay too much attention to the numbers in front of the machining operations. Those will not affect the CNC code or the order in which the machining operations are executed. However, if you do want to renumber these, you can easily do that by just double-clicking on the toolpath group, and then within this dialog box, select the option called Renumber Operations. Click OK and OK one more time, and you'll notice now that all of the machining operations have been renumbered. All right, now let's take a look at editing a machining operation. You've seen me do that a little bit before, but let's take a closer look at this. Now, one way to edit a machining operation is to select the machining operation and then right-click on that and then select Edit Operation. From there, you can make whatever changes you'd like. In this example, I might just change the RPM to 1400. I think that looks good, so we'll just click Next, Next, and Finish. And again, you can change any parameter that you'd like. Now, another way to edit a machining operation, instead of right-hand mouse clicking, you can double-click a machining operation, and then within this dialog box, select Edit Operation. That's going to provide the exact same editing functionality that we saw previously when we right-hand mouse clicked. We can make any changes that we'd like. I'm going to make this 1200 again for the RPM. We'll click Next, Next, and Finish. Now, the final way we can make edits to machining operations is simply just by left-clicking on the machining operation, and underneath here, you're going to see a bunch of parameters, a bunch of important parameters that can easily be changed. For example, I might want to change the spindle speed. So we come over here, I'll type in 4000 for that, and then click the little check. I can also change the turret position if I'd like, just by typing in the number and then checking. Very, very simple. So the advantage to this type of editing is that you don't have to open up the machining operation to make the edits. You just need to left click and then come down here and make whatever changes that you'd like. All right, let's take a look now at generating a setup sheet. Now, you can create a setup sheet for each one of your toolpath groups. For example, let's say we want to create a setup sheet for the Vice toolpath group. All we have to do is double-click the toolpath group, and from this dialog box, we want to select Job Sheet. A job sheet is a setup sheet within OneCNC. So we're going to left-click, and what this does is create a PDF file. This PDF file is your setup sheet. Notice how the setup sheet shows us the toolpath group, which is Vice. It also displays the date, the cycle time, the file name, which version of OneCNC was used. It also gives us a tool summary of all the tools that were used. If we scroll down a little bit more, here's a representation of our toolpath. If we scroll down a little bit more, notice how each machining operation is separated and all the pertinent and important information is provided. For example, for the facing operation, it gives us the cycle time, material top, the work offset, coolant, turret position, and all the tool parameters. And this is provided for each one of the individual machining operations. Very, very nice. Now, if you want to save this PDF file, it's very simple. Just head up to the upper left-hand corner, select File, and then Save As. This will give you the opportunity to save the setup sheet anywhere that you'd like on your computer. Now, you can also print the setup sheet by taking your cursor to the upper left-hand corner and clicking on the Print option. All right, let's exit out of the job sheet and take a look at generating CNC code. Let's say that we'd like to generate CNC code for our Vice toolpath group. To do that, all we need to do is double-click, and from within this dialog box, the first thing we want to do is select the proper post processor. Now, the post processor is responsible for converting all of your machining operations into a CNC program. In this example, I'm using the Haas post processor, but you can left-click here and select any post that you'd like. Again, though, for this example, let's use the Haas. Now we can click on the Post option, and from there, we're going to give the CNC program a name and select where we want to save it. I'm going to save the CNC program on the desktop, and for the name, I'm going to call this Setup-Vice. That looks great. We'll click Save and let OneCNC create the CNC program. Very good. Now, the CNC program opens up inside of the text editor. At this point, you can change the font style, you can renumber, you can make edits, add comments, whatever you'd like to do. There's also calculators provided, and you also have the ability to upload and download your CNC programs to and from the CNC machines using the RS-232 provided within all OneCNC CAD/CAM systems. Let's exit out of the editor, and let's say now that I want to create a CNC program for our fixture plate toolpath group. Same thing, just double click on the toolpath group, and from there select the post processor. In this example, let's say that the Haas machine is busy and I need to use a different machine tool. In this example, why don't we scroll up and why don't we use a Fidal? I'll click Fidal, and from there I'm going to click Post. I'm going to also save this program on the desktop, but instead of setup-vice, why don't we call this setup-fixture plate? That looks good. Let's click Save. And again, OneCNC generates the CNC code and takes it into the editor, but this time the CNC code is matched for a Fidal CNC. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.